everyone. I am Rae-Mi and I am just a Catholic woman who loves to share her faith. And I have something I just had to share with you this week. I wasn't planning on sharing this, but I started reading this book yesterday and I came across something that I just think is beautiful. And I have my dog Piper here on my lap, so if you see some ears pop up, there you go. You'll see her. So she's just kind of chilling. So I got this book a couple weeks ago and I haven't had a chance to start reading it until yesterday. And I love it just as I suspected I would, which is why I got it. I heard somebody talking about it on an interview, and as I love you too. And as I typically do, I made an impulse buy and then really underestimated or overestimated the time I would have to read it. So anyways, it's called Journey Back to Eden. And it is this Benedictine monk who spent a year in Egypt with the monks out there. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I think this probably happened in the 80s, but the book was published in 2002. But it's really beautiful so far. I'm only about 60 pages in, but I just couldn't wait to share this. So he's basically has like a diary, and he gives you like the days and what's happening that day and everything in his experiences. And sometimes he puts just a prayer in there that he wrote. And this is what really got me, was this prayer. I mean, his experiences are amazing to read and to hear how these men are living out in the desert, probably still today. But this is really beautiful, and it hits me especially because I love the paradoxical nature of our faith, of the Catholic faith. I just think it's something where you're like, well, if you don't really dig into it or think about it much, you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. That it's a total paradox, But I think G.K. Chesterton said, paradox is truth standing on its head to get your attention, which I just think is an amazing quote. I'm sure it's him. Usually if it's an amazing quote, it's G.K. Chesterton. But also, too, you'll read often that Jesus is a sign of contradiction. Similarly, St. Francis being, they refer to him as like an alter Christus, because he represented Christ so clearly in the world when he was alive. He's often called a sign of contradiction. But that's just something I love about our faith, because there's these things that seem like, well, these things don't seem to go together. But then you're like, yeah, actually, that's exactly right. This couldn't be more true and real. So anyways, with all of that said, this writer, his name is Mark Gruber, and the book is Journey Back to Eden. He writes in his prayer to God, he says, "You are nearer than any other to me, yet so gently near that I could overlook you. You are infinitely far away and other from me, but I cannot evade the intuition of your existence. This is the paradox of the middle distance." He calls it the middle distance, where it's just like God is closer than anyone could possibly be. He's dwelling in your very soul, but at the same time, he's infinitely far away, So it's just like this middle distance. And he even says that if God was pressed more closely upon us, we couldn't even handle it, right? We'd have a reflex of fear. But if he was farther away, we might forget about the friendship altogether. So it's just, God has this perfect middle distance from us, which I think is a really interesting thing to think about. And also too, I'm going to go on a tangent, but I've done some reading. I can't remember who wrote about this. I think it was St. Bernard of Clairvaux. And I just popped into my head. Otherwise, I would have prepared better. But He talks about the first coming of Christ, right, which happened. And then there's the second coming of Christ when he comes again. But there's like a middle coming, like he's always coming, like because he's at Mass and he's coming to us in the Eucharist, right? He's coming to us all the time in prayer. He's always coming to us. He's always seeking us out, right? So there's that middle, and that just popped into my head now, where there's this theological idea of this middle distance, this middle coming. But I went on all those tangents, but this is what I was really going to get to, where the writer says, he goes, this desert is my blessed retreat into the middle distance of your presence. And here's where these paradoxes or contradictions come into play. He says, arid and abundant, silent and singing, empty and filled, lonely and alluring, fearsome and friendly. And I love that. Like, that's so true, right? It's just these two words going together that seem opposite, but they are occurring all at the same time. And he keeps going. He says, here I see the cross more brightly, fallen down and lifted up, dying and rising, humiliated and exalted, tragic and glorious, abandoned yet affirmed forever. Wow. I mean, isn't that just perfect? It's so true, right? It's like all these things are happening at once. And I love it, because it drives me nuts that it seems like so much, especially these days, people are always being put into these boxes, right? Where it's just like, it's one or the other, and as Catholics, we're like, no, both, yes, we can be silent and we can sit in silence, and we can also sing for joy, and often you'll run into people that they good intentions and really devout, but they're like, no, it has to be this way. And it's like, well, no, you can have both, so there's just so many ways to express our faith. And we see that in the saints. We see so many different ways to express it. But also too, it's just, that's what our faith is too. It's this like dying and rising at the same time. I mean, just to think, of course, more specifically, he's talking about the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus. But we all go through this in some respect, where it's just, I know as somebody who converted, where it's just like, wow, as a part of that conversion, it's like you're dying and rising at the same time, because whoever you were before is dying and fading away, and you're becoming something new. And so it's like both of these things are happening. Humiliated and exalted. Oh, I love that. I mean, because you have to humble yourself in order to be exalted in our faith. And it's just like, well, how can this be? How can this be that the lower I go, the higher I am? It's just so, and it's because we're in the world, right? God's thoughts are above our thoughts. His ways are above our ways. So we're in the world and we're thinking in worldly terms. We're thinking as man thinks, I just need to get bigger and better. And, but no. God tells us, we need to be humble and meek. And, I think I said this in one of my other videos, but there's this quote, I think it's Elizabeth Ann Seton, where she says, the door to heaven is so low, you have to get down in order to get in there. And it's like you have to bring yourself down, but then God comes in and then he brings you up higher than you can even go on your own, right? It's beautiful. I just love it. I love what he wrote here. And it just hits me as true. It's all just so true. And it made me think, after I read it, I was just reflecting on it. And I was thinking of a similar idea, where when you have some of these negative feelings, and how God can be so present there in these experiences. I was thinking of a broken heart. When you have a broken heart, I mean, how could that be good, right? I mean, none of us wants to have our heart broken. But when our heart is broken, he can get in there really easily when it's broken open, rather than when it's hard and cold. And in some sense, then it seems as if having a soft, broken heart, even though it may be painful, may actually be better than having a cold, hard heart. Because at least when it's soft and open and maybe even broken, God can get in there, and he can be with us in that brokenness and heal us. But we never want to get hard, I think, and this just popped into my head too, but Pope John Paul II, I think he says that, it's better to cry, and to allow tears than to be hard and angry. And often we will choose the hardness because it hurts, no, you don't want to feel that way. But when we are soft and open and even tearful, God can be so close to us in that. And it can be very beautiful too. Another one is just like if you feel alone or separated from everyone else, you're not included, that can be good, because then it's easier to be just with him, to be closer to him in that. Or if you feel you're not very confident and you're unsure in yourself or what you're doing, that can be a positive thing too, because you'll cling to him all the more, and he'll do things, like I always say, that you could never imagine. So it's kind of like, I heard this recently too, where it's like, no matter what's happening, you can be close to God. And that's all that matters. Like, what else even matters, So in that sense, it's like, you're always good. You're always having a good day, I think it was Father Dan Rehill who said this. He's a priest who, he makes a lot of videos. I think it's a podcast and he gets interviewed a lot, but I think he said this and it struck me, where it's just like, if you're having a bad day or things aren't going well, you can offer that up, and you can be even closer to God in that. And if things are going well, then, that's good too. It's nice when things are going well and you feel good. That's nice too. So then either way you win, because you can be closer to God and you can glorify God. You can glorify God when things are going well, and you can glorify God when things aren't going well. And sometimes this is so paradoxical too, but sometimes, when you are vulnerable and brought low and things aren't going well, you can also connect with other people more, because we've all been there. And it's funny because a lot of times we don't want to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about their weaknesses, right? Who wants to talk about that? We only want to talk about all the cool things we've done and how amazing, our accomplishments are and our talents. Nobody wants to talk about how they suck, But it's funny because when you allow yourself to share your failings or your weaknesses, it can really help you bond with other people, because we've all been there, we've all been there. We've all experienced that. And in some ways, people are more bound together through difficult times or hard times than they are during the good times. So it's funny because you're actually can be closer to God and neighbor in these difficult times. So anyways, I just kind of went off on a bunch of different tangents there, but I guess at the end of the day, the point is that no matter what's happening, you can be close to God. And sometimes when there's two opposite things, paradoxical things happening, something that seems like it doesn't make sense, maybe it's God trying to tell you something, maybe it's something that is outside of this world, above this world, that's happening here. And we see that all the time in the Catholic Church, which is one of the reasons I love the Catholic Church. One of the millions of reasons I love the Catholic Church so much is that you get to have everything. You get to have both, and you get to have, the sorrows and the joys, You get to have the silence and the singing. You have it all. It's all coming together because it's all from God, and He is that beautiful mystery, which is a mystery is not something that we can't understand. It's something we can endlessly understand. I didn't make that up either. I think someone else said that. So anyways, with all of that said, thank you so much for just listening and letting me share, indulging me in all of these thoughts. I'm going to keep reading this book. And chances are, if the rest of it is as good as the first 60 pages, I'll probably end up talking about it some more. So I hope everyone is doing well. Have a wonderful day. God bless.